Cathy.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Órla. Welcome to Lena Bird's Book Club.
We had a little cameo from a Christmas elf there. Cathy's daughter is joining us in the background of this video as it is the summer holidays and she is having fun listening to us talk about books. In today's video we're going to be looking at The Eye of the World, which is the first novel in Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. Today we are only looking at the prologue, and Cathy, I have a question for you before we get properly into it. What happens in the prologue?
So I asked Rachel before we filmed this video, do I need to reread the prologue before we do this video?
And I said no.
Well, you're in for a surprise.
In for a surprise. Okay, this is what I remember from the prologue, which I read like 2 years ago now.
Yeah, something like that.
Luz Theron is wandering around the palace, devastated, trying to find his wife, Ileana.
Again?
And he can't find her, and there's dead people everywhere, and it looks like a huge destruction thing has happened, and he's really upset, and he can't remember what's going on, he doesn't know what's happening, and then a bad guy comes and taunts him about it.
Who is that bad guy?
I'm not sure, but I would guess it's one of the Forsaken, and I think it's the same Forsaken who is like trailing round for the rest of this book. So I think that's Balthazar. That's not how I would say his name, is it?
Okay,
What happens?
Every single villain.
I can't name every single villain in the series, but we do have a video about that as it happens.
In my opinion, it's one of our funniest videos so far. What happens right at the end of the prologue, do you know?
Dragonmount.
Yeah!
Oh, Dragonmount! So, the bad guy taunts Luz Theron and says, you've done this, you've killed everyone, you've killed your own wife.
Rip.
You're a terrible person, you've caused this. He has a massive freak out and does something that creates Dragonmount, this huge big mountain that erupts and keeps growing and growing and growing.
Okay.
Is that what happens?
Of course I know.
Okay.
Cathy, in our first introduction video, you told us that you studied English literature and creative writing. So my question for you is, what is the structural purpose of a prologue?
Ooh.
To give you a sneak peek.
Ooh, all this says to give you a sneak peek. Which actually is pretty good. Yeah, so a prologue can be used to set up the genre of the fiction piece you're about to read. And it can be used exactly like Órla just said, to give you a sneak peek. So say if you've got an adventure story that's going to get very dramatic later on, but is going to start slowly and build up to it. The prologue is a chance to give you a taste of the action to come before you get there, so that you know you're heading towards something good. Or it can be used to set up some mystery to arouse a bit more interest in the early pages.
Is there like a specific checklist of things that you need to include in a prologue, or functions that a prologue should fulfill when you're writing? I know that to some extent every writer in every book is different, but is there a generally accepted checklist?
It wasn't covered in my course lessons. But I would say in general, like you said about setting up the tone, like it needs to be consistent with the tone of your piece, and the genre and the kind of type of action you're doing. I actually did see a really good YouTube video about prologues in films that I'll have to try and find and link to this video. And it was kind of, I can't find it now because we're filming the video. But that was really interesting about setting up stuff that's going to be consistent for the world. And like an example of it done really well, all that's passing my phone as if I'm going to look this up right now, is in the Indiana Jones movies. The kind of prologue in the third film, which shows young Indiana becoming Indiana, even though it's quite a long one, is a really fun one because it sets up that this is an adventure story. And this is about how this character became who he was.
Tells every single word.
So yeah, I don't know if there's a checklist, but there's stuff about establishing your tone, establishing your theme, and kind of setting a promise of what's to come. I'd say those would be like the main 3 reasons of the prologue.
Okay. Bearing all that in mind, and with your 2-year-old memory of it, how well do you think the prologue of Eye of the World fulfills that criteria?
Meow.
I like the prologue. I think it's a good piece of narrative fiction. Well, it's a good short story, I don't know. I'm asking specifically about how it fits in with the rest of the book.
Yeah, okay, so I think that's where I have hesitation. I think the prologue is so good for the series.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere that the series is going to go is kind of captured in that prologue and what's at stake and what's it about.
Well, let's hear it.
So, like, well, you've got this it introduces Luce Therin. He's gone crazy. He's killed his own wife, he doesn't know. He's been taunted by the Dark One and commits this act of destruction creation at the same time. All of that kind of carries through the Wheel of Time series. But is it that relevant to Eye of the World? I am not sure, because we don't really interact with that storyline again as much as I'm aware in the first book. It doesn't have anything directly to do with the Rand we know in Eye of the World or the conflict he faces. I guess he's kind of aware that he might go crazy if he's a dragon reborn. There's that there. But he's not really battling madness at this stage.
Now it
of the
gets
book.
interesting.
Now it gets interesting. So, I think technically, you could say that this prologue doesn't fit the Eye of the World book.
But it fits
But
the
it
Wheel
fits
of
the
Time
Time
as a whole.
series.
Okay. In Cathy's summary of the prologue, she covered most things. So Luce Therin is in his palace, he's walking around, he's surrounded by devastation and dead bodies, but he's not registering any of it. And then,
that's the bit I forgot.
And then Ilan Morin Tedranai rocks up. Who's that? Which Forsaken is it?
Well, I said Balthazar, Balthazar.
It's Ishamael.
Ishamael. Oh,
Who
yeah, I didn't know
at times
that.
is known goes by Baalzamon, the Heart of the Dark.
Okay.
Which is, that's kind of like the mystery of the first book, the first few books.
And he is the bad guy for the rest of the book.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So now I'm thinking, in our Who's That Forsaken video, when you said Balthazar, you actually meant Baalzamon, so you're losing a point. Retroactively. So Ilan comes and he looks at Luce Therin in the heat of madness and is like, you can't even see what you've done, and he gives him back his lucidity, and then Luce Therin looks around and sees that all his family is dead and he blames it on Ilan, but it's not Ilan who's done it, it's Luce Therin. And he tells him that, and then Ilan is like, come and serve the Dark One, to which Luce Therin says, no way, Jose, and runs away.
Hello, Luna.
And hi, Luna.
Cat's just walked in.
The cat's just walked in. And then he's taunted by Ilan Morin Tedranai and calls a lot of power down on him, turns into Dragonmount.
Okay.
And then Ilan is watching this happen from afar and is like, we'll face each other again, time is an endless cycle, yada yada yada.
Now there's actually a real cat in this room.
So now you've said that, maybe that does set up a bit of the Eye of the World. Except for, again, perhaps one of the weaknesses in the Wheel of Time series, I feel like I'm being really critical of the series that I really love. Maybe one of the criticisms is that Rand and Ishamael, they're the good guy and the bad guy in this thing. And he's trying to make Rand into like, follow the Dark One, Rand's not having it, they battle at the end. But at no point do you think that the fight between them is very personal on Rand's side.
I just got fishy breath in my eye.
So like Rand isn't personally invested in defeating this guy, apart from just trying to survive. You know, they've no real big beef or grudge or personality clash or either. It's just good guy, bad guy against one another.
Yeah. And this is, I don't know how well you remember this. So Ishamael becomes Moridin, who is the person that Rand swaps bodies with at the end.
Oh!
So these two are like,
yeah.
they're linked all the way throughout.
Into the bag.
You see, now I'm feeling like if I remembered who people were, I would get a lot more of the nuance in this book series.
Yeah, I suppose maybe, but everyone, you know.
Oh, I feel really ignorant now then.
Why?
I missed out on so much. I get it now. So the bad guy is in the prologue, the bad guy is in the first book, the bad guy who swaps body whips at the end. I completely not picked up on that at all.
Whew. We have just read the two prophecies histories that the prologue ends with. How do you think those contribute to the prologue being a prologue.
Yeah, they again really set up like the central, almost like the central conflict of Rand. In that, so one is about the dragon as the destroyer, and one is about the dragon as the person who brings forth new life. And those are the two elements of Rand that he is constantly battling against, because it's in his nature, I think, to be the life bringer. That's how he's been raised by the wonderful Tam, who we love. I remember when I first read Eye of the World, I think one of the things I said to you was like, I really want Rand and Tam to meet up again. And you did that face because you knew they weren't going to meet until like the end of the series.
Oh, Rand.
And it wouldn't go well when they did at first. So the question, yes, I think those two quotes really build up what's going to be happening for Rand. And I guess true of the Eye of the World is whether Rand's going to accept his identity as the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah. I think another thing that I like about the prologue is that obviously this is one of the only times that we see this timeline.
Yeah.
Mostly everything else is in Rand's day.
Yeah.
There's a few flashbacks and flash forwards, but most of the time we're in Rand's timeline. And I think it's just a really interesting little segment into the Age of Legends.
Yeah.
We're now going to move into a little fun activity that I like to call What's That? Spelled W-O-T, Wheel of Time.
What's
that? I'm going to pull out some words and
no.
ask Cathy what they are. So,
Just a horrible memory test.
what is the name of the Dark One? Like the true name of the Dark One that people don't say?
I don't know.
Voldemort.
Voldemort, all I said. No, don't kick the tripod.
Okay, what is the Ring of Tamerlane?
I don't know.
What are the 9 rods of Dominion?
I don't know.
Here's a new rule.
Are they like-
You can't say I don't know 2 times.
Hang on, is the 9 rods of Dominion something like running 9 kingdoms?
No, we don't know. We
don't
don't know.
Do you know any of those things?
Off the top of my head, no. There's probably like some information about them somewhere, but it's just language thrown in, you know? Just a little bit.
Is it in the glossary?
I don't think so.
I think it's only now that Rachel's explained the prologue to me. And some other key information that I'm recognising the epicness of this setup.
Bless you.
Bless you all.
The last thing that we are going to talk about is the secret second prologue to Eye of the World.
What?
Did you know that Eye of the World has a second prologue?
No.
So, in the edition that I give you, it's not in here because in the turn of the millennium, 2001, 2002, Wheel of Time, Eye of the World got republished as, remarketed as something for children and young people. So they split it into 2, from the 2 rivers and to the Blight, I think. I don't know where they split it. And in the first copy of those, because, I don't know, it was too confusing to jump from Lews Therin to Rand, they put in a little intermediary part, which it takes place 7 years before the events of the story.
You
Oh.
want
It's
something
called-
every day.
It's called Ravens, and it is in the point of view of a character. Guess which character? It's someone from Emmonsfield. They're not a POV character in the first book, but they are in the rest of the series.
Hadan Fane?
No.
I'm going to guess Tam. Egwene's dad?
No, it's Egwene. In our next video, I'm giving Cathy some homework. She's going to go home. Well, she is home. She's going to stay home and read a copy of Ravens that I will send her.
Ooh.
And then we will discuss the merits of it as a prologue and whether you think it should have been added, shouldn't have been added, what you think it tells us about Egwene as a character, things like that.
Just when I thought I'd read all the Wheel of Time official content. Nice. Oh, I look forward to reading that.
Ooh.
Okay, so that was our kind of deep dive into the Wheel of Time prologue. Is it a deep dive when you forget crucial details? Not sure. But that was our discussion of the Wheel of Time prologue. I hope you've enjoyed it and you have not been overly angered by my terrible memory. But please let us know what you make of the prologue. Does it work for the book, Eye of the World? Does it work for the series? What do you love about it? Can you tell us any interesting details that we've missed? Let us know.
If you have any questions for Cathy about ravens, leave them down below and I'll make sure to ask them to her next time.
Easy questions.
Easy.
Make them as hard as you possibly can.
You heard it here first. Make them as hard as you possibly can.
Thanks so much for watching.
We'll see you next week.
Bye. Okay. Can you stop the laughing?